a very clever piece of work that uses a variation of this technique done by Marianne Gehring, who was my former postdoc. She now teaches in New Zealand, and her PhD student, Wade. What they did was to do kind of a high-tech version of Lost in the Mall. They took a photograph of the subject when the subject was a child, and the subject is with his father. You see that on the left. They used Photoshop, and they took that photograph and they plopped it into a photo of a hot air balloon ride. You see on the right. They then showed this fake photo along with real photos to the subjects to try to get them to remember the experience. And when people looked at these fake photos under these conditions, about half of them began to remember this made-up experience that had been completely made up through Photoshop. Half of them. Well, I and other psychologists have now used not only the Lost in the Mall technique to try to get people to develop false beliefs and false memories, but we've used other techniques that are unfortunately common in some psychotherapy situations. We've used guided imagination to get people to try to remember things that didn't happen, and that succeeds. We've used dream interpretation, and that works. We've used hypnosis, and that can lead people to develop false memories. And simply supplying people with false information can get them to remember things that never happened. There are many people who are angry about this research. They are some of the psychotherapists who feel a little attacked by this kind of discussion, and some of the repressed memory patients, the thousands of them who still think they have these memories that were previously repressed. And so to attack the work, the research, to try to dismiss it, these individuals will say, maybe it really happened. Maybe the subject really did get lost. Maybe the subject really did nearly drown. Maybe the subject really did have to go to the hospital. Maybe the technique is pulling out a true memory rather than planting a false memory. And so I and my collaborators decided, well, why don't we try to plant a memory for something that would be implausible? Like when you were a kid, you witnessed demonic possession. We did this. We succeeded in getting people to believe that they had witnessed demonic possession as a child. And after we published these results, the critics said, maybe it really happened. And so we then knew we had to try to plant a memory for something that would be impossible so that we could stop this particular line of attack. And this is how we came up with the idea, why don't we try to get people to believe that they met Bugs Bunny on a trip to Disneyland. Now, Bugs Bunny would never be at Disneyland because Bugs is Warner Brothers, and Bugs would not be allowed to stay step into a Disney. But after we created this fake ad for Disney, and we asked our subjects to study it and tell us if they like it and what they don't like, or control subjects studied an ad for Disney that didn't mention any cartoon characters. We then, later on, asked our subjects which cartoon characters they met on a childhood trip to Disney. And in this first study, we found 16% of the subjects who saw the Bugs ad at Disney told us they remembered meeting Bugs Bunny at Disney. An impossible memory. One of my graduate students, Melissa Grinley, for her thesis work, wanted to know what is it they remember about meeting Bugs at Disney. And so she did additional research, and in her work, first she wanted to try to boost the false memory rate, get it higher, so that she could then study these people and find out what exactly they remembered. How do you boost the false memory rate? One simple way is with repeating the suggestion. So Grinley showed people 3 ads featuring Bugs Bunny at Disney, and she did boost the false memory rate to over 1/3. Now she asked these people, tell me exactly what you remember about this meeting. And she found that 62% remember shaking his hand. Now, shaking his hand was mentioned in one of the ads, so maybe that's not too surprising. But 46% remember hugging him. That wasn't mentioned. 23% remember touching his ear, touching his tail, hearing him say, "What's up, dog?" One subject remembered that he was holding a carrot. All this sensory detail in a made-up memory, which is going to give this story a lot of credibility when somebody hears it, even though it's a false memory. The critics were there. If you want to say that this false memory work applies to sex abuse, then show us that you can get people to remember being molested by Mickey Mouse. So one of my students decided to try to do this. Not with Mickey. She decided to use Pluto. She decided to try, Sherry Berkowitz and others in the lab, to get people to remember that when they were a kid, they went to Disney, and the Pluto character uncomfortably, unpleasantly, and persistently licked their ear.